up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Alternative Blacks podcast. This is season 4? Four. Yeah, we've made it. This will be I think it's 4. First episode of season 4, or possibly 3, is going to be with Carbon Copy. As always, follow us on Instagram and wherever you get podcasts. You can find us on Instagram at Alternative Blacks Pod. And if you're interested in subscribing to our Patreon, the link will be in the bio. Thank you, guys. But before we get into this, my name is Tyler Washington, joined always by my co-host,
Chris.
Yeah, that's how we're going to do it. If you're watching this on YouTube, we're just going to be leaning a lot. We're really excited today to be joined by Kyle and Brendon from Carbon Copy. I'm going to have you guys introduce yourselves, just who you are, and maybe a little brief history into your brewing experience.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks so much for having us. Thanks for coming out on a sunny Monday.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the weather's starting to turn. It's getting a little nicer. But yeah, my name is Kyle, and
I'm Brendon.
yeah, and we're Carbon Copy beer and wine. We do both, so we're not just a brewery. But yeah, we've been open now for a little over 3 months. We opened in December of 2022. We're out here in West Philadelphia on the corner of 50th and Baltimore. And yeah, what else is there to say, really? Sorry, it's my first time doing this, you know?
Great. You guys are doing great. Before we get into more of this, how about we talk a little bit about what we are drinking here today? So we can start with what you're drinking.
We are both drinking the same thing. It's Moat, which is our Belgian table beer. It's like 4%, hopped with Motueka and Simcoe
and
yeah.
Crystal.
Yeah, it's been a while since we brewed this one, but we're on like the last keg, so we're kind of like cherishing our last moments. We're gonna be pretty bummed when this one runs out, I think.
So are you going to do a different beer then afterwards?
We'll probably rebrew this beer, but yeah, like part of our like approach to the brewery is to kind of like keep some constant beers around all the time, but still have some seasonality and one-off beers every now and then, but not like a different beer every week. So like if you find that you like a beer, you can actually like come back and drink it again. Not like, oh, they brewed it once and they'll never make it again. But that being said, we'll probably work it back into the schedule, but we'll definitely keep like more of like, we got to keep Bindle and Spur around first and foremost. But we like having this little hoppy Belgian number on the menu as well.
We love a good variety. So he's drinking Bindle?
Yeah, Bindle is our North German style Pilsner. So kind of think like Jever. So it's got a little bit more of a present bitterness than maybe other Pilsners. But
yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah,
but it's absolutely delicious.
Thanks.
It's one of my favorite Pilsners I think I've had in a long time.
Oh,
and
thank you.
We were just at the Foodery last night looking for Pilsners. Like, what Pilsners have we had that are actually like good that we could go back to? We couldn't think of anything. This would be one of those for me. Absolutely.
The Foodery, what a classic spot. I mean, I haven't been to I don't live near there. Like, I know that there's two. There's one in like on Spruce and 10th, and then
There's one in Northern Liberty.
yeah, and I think that's the one that
we
you
were
were
at,
at.
yeah.
Then there's another one in like Rittenhouse area.
Is there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, there is. That's the first one.
Yeah.
In the Rittenhouse area. Yeah.
The like.
Oh, really? Yeah, that's sad.
Yeah, we definitely think people shy away from, hopping Pilsners until like you have like a really fresh like German Pils. You might not think it's as hoppy, but we usually get them a little bit older than by the time they get over here. So we wanted something that had a lot of nice clean bitterness, but also like a lot of hoppy aroma and flavor too. So use some Hallertau Middle Fruit and an American hop called Sterling.
Sterling.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've heard of Sterling. Have you heard of Sterling?
I have not, but now I want to make an Archer beer.
Yeah. It's very much not a cool hop, so most people, you wouldn't see it like on like an IPA or anything like that.
It's not one of those sexy hops.
No,
What are
definitely
the
not.
sexy hops?
Motueka. I hear that a lot.
I would say that one, like, in my opinion, like Nelson,
Yeah.
Sauvin, like
Galaxy.
Citra Mosaic. Yeah, Citra Mosaic are kind of like, stepped out of the spotlight a little bit, but people still love them.
They're
you
just
know?
they're kind of
Yeah.
just like a given at this point.
Yeah, it's like at this point, if you're not using Citra Mosaic, it's
I was about to say, because
yeah.
Mosaic used to be one of those hops that like I kept my eye out for because I loved it. I think like Chill Wave from Great Lakes was one of my favorite.
Oh, Great Lakes, yeah.
Yeah, and I just don't see it as often. That one particular, but Mosaic is. You like Citra and Simcoe.
Oh, Simcoe's the
Yeah,
best.
Simcoe's one
I
of
feel
our
like
favorites.
It like
I knew I liked this guy.
yeah, it like does both. You know, like it's got all those like fruity aromas, but then it also has the traditional like grassiness and earthiness that I like too.
Yeah, I think the beer for me that got me onto Simcoe was Simcoe Samurai from Pizza Boy.
Oh, cool.
Pizza Boy in Enola.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we've
yeah.
been up there. It's a great facility.
Yeah, that was like a one-off beer they did. Like you're saying, never saw it again after I had it.
Yeah.
And
It's just
that's
always
probably,
searching for Simcoe Samurai.
Yeah.
Forever.
And that beer changed my life for hops. Like that was the beer. I'm like, wow, Simcoe and rye. It's so great.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have Simcoe in our pale ale. We put it in a small Belgian beer.
Yeah.
It's in the West Coast.
So great.
We're
much better
big
than
fans.
Mosaic.
Yeah, we definitely have the hop war all the time. Which hop is better? I actually did get to try this at Millchild Clubhouse. They have it on draft. They usually have a really good like draft list that's pretty local.
Yeah.
So I was here for the grand opening that weekend, but since then I haven't been back to have another beer. And so when we were there like yesterday or something like that, I was just like, oh, I gotta have one just to like not come in dry. I gotta have a little taste again. And it is a wonderful, wonderful Pilsner. Hannah, who's over here helping with the recording, is not a Pilsner person, but she even enjoyed it.
Oh.
So
Well, that's a compliment.
That's a huge trust me.
She has popped into a live before, and we dropped her from the live because she started hating on Pilsners. So, what am I drinking?
That's Spur, our West Coast IPA. So tried to go pretty traditional with that. Tried to get it pretty dry. Has Simcoe, some CTZ or Columbus, which is like a super pungent, crazy high alpha acid hop, and then some kind of classic Centennial, like the main hop that's in Two Hearted. A little bit of Citra, just a little bit.
A little bit citrus.
This is a wonderful beer in a juicy, heavy like IPA world. Sometimes the like West Coast style is a very refreshing
Yeah.
thing to have, and that's why I kind of like getting that pininess. But the Citra with this piney is a really nice balance. It's not too much of like a punch in the face of pine. So.
Yeah.
Brendon lived in San Diego for a few years and brewed out there, so the West Coast style definitely is near and dear to his heart. He definitely is like
where were you
always
growing up there?
refining.
I was at Modern Times for a couple of years out there.
Oh wow.
And then moved back here. I'm from right outside of West Philly in Drexel Hill, so
Nice. And
moved back with missed the family and got a nice job offer, so I had to, my girlfriend decided to move back from San Diego to here, so she's kind of
out.
crazy. But
Come with me to Philadelphia.
beautiful. Are you
California's
sick of
nice.
sunshine?
But,
It's nice, but how about
Philadelphia?
oppressive, snowy, cold for a few
I
months?
dragged her from New York, so
Same
some
difference.
reason Philly has a pool.
It has a pull.
It does. I mean, I'm originally from Indiana, and I love Philadelphia. It's great.
So I know you guys have a pretty good history of breweries that you guys have worked on. For those that aren't familiar with you guys, aren't familiar with Carbon Copy, I think it would be really nice just to kind of go through your beer journey up until now, just to give them a little background of the knowledge that really is existing in this brewery.
For sure. You want to go first?
Sure. So, had been working front of house in beer-focused spots and breweries for a while. Finished up grad school and decided what better thing to do than be a brewer than instead of what I went to school for. So,
What'd you go to school for?
audiology.
Okay.
Yeah. So a pretty big jump.
I thought that a lot too.
Yeah.
actually. Just never actualized it like you.
Yeah, it was a real either do it and get it out of your system, or fall in love with it and do it forever. And here I am now. So I was there for a few years. started out just packaging beer, kind of worked my way into the lab and then the barrel program. So a lot more on the packaging quality seller side of things. Got offered a job at Tired Hands to run their, they called it the dispensary. It was like their oak fermentation facility, and then build a lab out of there. So I was there for 4 or 5 years, and had met Kyle before he started working at Tired Hands, but we had worked together for a few years over there.
Yeah.
Then we quit in 2020, middle of pandemic, and we're like, you know what? It's time to quit our jobs. This is a good...
All this uncertainty makes me want to have more uncertainty.
Yep.
Yeah, right.
Really go all in.
Yeah.
So I'm originally from Indiana. I got my first brewing job at Three Floyds Brewery, but I had worked there for many years prior to that. I started working there when I was like 16 as a dishwasher in the kitchen, kind of like climbed the kitchen ropes. And then when I was like 20, because kitchens have high turnover, so by that time I'd worked my way up so high, they're like, do you want to be the sous chef? And I was like, not really. I don't like cooking. It's just like a job that was flexible, and like I was going to school too, and I could take time off and stuff, so I liked it. But I was like, I don't really want to be a chef or anything. Like, I'd really be interested in working in the brewery. And they let me. When I turned 21, they gave me a job in the brewery, and I worked there for 5 years as just like a cellarman and production like brewer. And then they asked if I wanted to move to Copenhagen, Denmark, and open a brewery for them there. And I was like 25 at the time. I was like, yeah, that sounds really cool. You want me to move to Europe and brew beer? And it was because it was like an American style. They like teamed up with a Danish brewer named McKellar, and they were opening an American style brew pub / Texas barbecue restaurant. So they needed an American brewer to move there. And I was like, all right. And I mean, they did it right. They had like Texas smokers, and they had like a little glossary to tell people like what macaroni and cheese was, because like no one knew what that was. It was crazy.
I think the funniest thing is going like out of the country and stumbling into like an American bar. I went to Calgary, and I had to wait for my hotel, and I remember just like trying to find a quick spot nearby to drop in, and I was there to like see the difference between like America and Canada. And first place I walk in is an American bourbon bar, and I'm like, this was the exact opposite of what I was looking
I'm trying to experience culture. But yeah, we were definitely an oasis for Americans over there. But yeah, so I helped like open that brew pub and ran it for 3 years. Over there, like they had like a festival every year, so there's like tons of American brewers coming in and out. Like I brewed a lot of collaboration beers with people, and one of those led to a job offer at Hill Farmstead in Vermont. So I was living in Europe, and I was like, it's really nice here, but it's a pretty good opportunity to go here too, you know? So I decided to come back to the US to work there. Moved there in August. It was beautiful, warm, and then the winter came and it was cold
Like a
and
month and a half later.
desolate. Yeah, so I realized that maybe like rural Vermont living wasn't for me. And at that time I had already met like Brendon and a few other people that worked at Tired Hands, and then they had reached out and like offered me a job at their fermenteria, like production brewery, and I was like, yeah, I'd like to live in the city again. Like I already know people that work there and they're all really nice. So moved down here and worked there for 3-ish years and met Brendon, and then like kind of started talking about opening our own thing, and then we did it. So
Yep. Mid-pandemic.
Mid-pandemic.
Quit your job.
And here you guys are.
And
Yeah.
here we are.
Yeah, it took a little bit of time, but finally found a place that felt right. Looked at a lot of other places, and nothing really hit that. Like,
Yeah, it was-
constantly questioning, like, is this the right decision? Like, when this opportunity came up, we were like, this is the spot. This makes all the sense in the world to us.
Yeah, okay, so why did that make all the sense in the world? Like, what were you looking for specifically in a location?
We were initially thinking a little bit kind of a larger kind of brewery, maybe do a little bit more distribution. but that didn't really, just didn't feel like right to try to work really hard and then just send our kind of beer out in the world. We'd rather like build a place that people come, enjoy it. We can brew on a small enough scale that we can really dial in the recipes. So we have a 10-barrel system here. So, you know, some of our main beers we're on 3rd, 4th, 5th batches of, and then just kind of really hone that in, try to, you know, make a nice consistent beer, and then be kind of more of a neighborhood focused spot, kind of keep like the beer on draft or the draft list to be more like you'd find at like a beer bar or something, where it's, you know, kind of more curated, a little bit more diverse, have like a little bit of something for everybody.
Something for everyone, instead of having like 10 IPAs on the list that have just like slightly different hops. We want to have like different styles, like kind of like the brew pubs of the early 2000s or something, where you have like some stronger beers, some lighter beers. Like we have like a Baltic Porter on right now. Like
I
it's
love
really,
a Baltic Porter.
Oh yeah. So
I just didn't think that was a good one to start.
yeah, you got to work your way up to the Baltic Porter, you know.
So you guys opened during the pandemic, right? Or you were starting to?
We were in
business.
planning during the pandemic. Yeah, we like quit our previous jobs in like April. We put in our notice and we were done in October of 2020, and then spent the time from there like looking at locations, like trying to like form a business plan, all that fun stuff. But yeah, we didn't open until December of 2022. So, and we took over this spot in June of 22. So most of the like early days of the pandemic were actually spent kind of like tweaking our original plan. Like Brendon said, we originally were looking for something a little bigger, looking for like a warehouse that we would like fit out to have a brewery in it. Originally we weren't thinking about doing like food at all, and then like seeing like the changes that happened in beer during the pandemic kind of like altered our path, and kind of like, I think for the better. Like I'm really happy with like how everything kind of turned out. Like we saw that a lot of people like during the pandemic, like maybe before that people were into like new beers every week and like trying all these different things, but during the pandemic, at least for like us personally, and what we saw is like a lot of people trying to buy like something that they knew, to familiar to like have in the fridge. Like for me it was like Daisy Cutter from Half Acre. I would like get the 12 packs,
One of my favorites.
have it in my fridge, you know, like I would have like that and a Pilsner, and I could kind of like switch it up. But like
I have never walked out of I've been to Half Acre I think 2 times. Never walked out of there with like a clear mind. Like it is
Have
a
you ever
dangerous.
actually walked out of there?
No, it's always a dangerous place. Daisy Cutter's good. And I think what's interesting about what you're bringing up is craft beer drinkers, I feel, love the variety, but it was something about the pandemic that made you want to go to Old Familiar.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think that was so
Comfort beer.
comfort beer. Yeah. So with that
Yeah.
being said, like looking at how the pandemic impacted the brewery and how you guys adapted to that, because as you said, the process of building this out was mainly during like the pandemic. So I think for a lot of people, starting something new kind of would have been a very scary idea. How did you guys adapt to the pandemic with this venture?
Well, it definitely was a scary idea, you know, but you just gotta, it's kind of like anything, sometimes you just gotta really just jump in and try to do it if you're gonna do it. One thing, you know, we saw was, like, we always knew canning and having packaged beer was really important. And we initially had like thought about the mobile canning kind of situation, but seeing like how that affected other people's businesses, like everyone was trying to can at that point, and then the scheduling and then the increase in cost of that, just
Aluminum cans shortage
Yeah.
and everything, like
it just made more sense to us to buy a small line. We're like, we need to figure out how to work that into the budget. That's kind of like, that's probably the shiniest, newest toy that we have.
Yeah.
Just let us really make beer on our own schedule instead of trying to make a bunch of beer, have it all ready for like 3 weeks, so that way you're like, I'm getting the most out of, you know, this mobile canning company coming in because they're going to charge me a ton of money. Now we've done as little as 20, 30 cases in a run, and we can really take our time and make sure that it's, you know, being filled like with quality in mind.
I think what's really interesting about your situation too is you guys had the opportunity to come into a building that was already a brewery,
an existing space,
right? Which is a building that I actually did my first bartending shift at.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this is my first place that I've ever bartended at.
Looks a little different than when you were here, right?
It's lighter somehow. Like
it is a little lighter, you
makes
know.
me happy. But I'm a little familiar with the back space, but I don't know if they were canning back here when I had come in. So I was primarily bartending at the south location for Dock Street. But can you talk to us a little bit about the operations here? How does this all work for you guys?
Yeah, so when Dock Street was here, they opened in, I think, 2007, and they were here for almost like 16 or 17 years, something like that. Yeah. But when you came to do your bartending shift, they had already opened south and had kind of, I think they moved most of their like canning operations and like larger production operations over there. But when Dock Street, before they had the south location, they also rented the building next to us. It's like a garage. They called it the cannery. And they actually had the can line over there. They had a hole in the wall to like connect the two spaces to like, and like some like pipes that like they would transfer the beer over there into larger tanks. And logistically, it was probably pretty great because they had a garage door. It was on street level. So like these are some challenges that we have now that we don't have that space. But we've done a lot of like rearranging and reimagining of like what we wanted the brewery space to do, and we've been able to do a lot more in a lot less space. I think because we've worked at a few different breweries of like varying sizes, we kind of like knew what was important to us, like ample cold storage space. Like obviously we had to make sure the canning worked. We also asked our landlord to put in a larger door so we can get in like pallets or even extra tanks in easier, and he was able to do that for us. And we also got a few serving tanks so that we could transfer larger batches of beer into a serving tank that can be served on draft instead of like doing a ton more kegging. Because right now Brendon and I are doing all the brewing, packaging, and also like overseeing like front of house operations as well as like other ownership responsibilities. So yeah, our significant others really love that, you know.
Lots of time.
But they are very supportive, and like they help out when they can too, and we've been able to get into a flow where we can kind of take some time off, or I'll cover one day and Brendon covers the next, so that we can get some days off.
So you do get some days off.
Well, not full days. Well, every 2 weeks we get a full day off.
Yeah.
But,
every other Sunday.
yeah.
Pretty chill, you know.
Yeah, it's a
real
pretty
chill.
yeah.
See, I work for the state, which, you know, the whole adage about state workers, when it's 5 o'clock,
Yeah,
well, I'm
you're
done
done.
before that, but when it's 5 o'clock, it's like,
Laptop's
unless
closed.
the world's on fire, we're dropping it and we're out the door.
Yeah.
So but at the same time, it seems like you gotta love it, and it has to be fun throughout all the stress almost as
Yeah.
well to make it bearable, I guess, for you guys. And I want to just take a step back and kind of talk about the name, because I think Tyler has more experience with you guys than I do in the history of it, but I don't live in Philly, so I don't know all of this history, and I'm not a people person like Tyler. He knows literally everyone. So where does the name Carbon Copy come from? What's the inspiration behind it?
The name has like a few different meanings. Like, I guess like the first and foremost is kind of like a tongue-in-cheek reminder to us to not be like a carbon copy of every other brewery. You know, a lot of people kind of just like jumping on bandwagons to be like, oh, this is the popular thing at the time, so I'm just gonna do that and try to like make the most money. It's like we just kind of want to like do our own thing, and I mean, it's not like we're not reinventing the wheel or anything, but like we want to have hoppy beer, we want to have low ABV beers, pilsners, all that stuff, and kind of like just kind of do things our way. Another meaning of it could be like in terms of quality, like we want our beers to be consistently high quality and like consistent across the brand. So like if you're enjoying the Bindle today, if you come back next week or next month or next year, like you know what it's going to be. It's like we try to like, we're dialing it in. We're trying to get it to be like as consistent as possible.
That's like a really key point to us. Being craft beer enthusiasts, we talk about the industry a lot, and one of the hiccups or one of the things that we have to at least tip our hat to Macro Brewing is the fact that they can consistently make the same thing over and over and over. And
again. All over the world too.
Right.
Like, they dial it in.
Yeah, and so I think we've had beer at different breweries that we love, but when we go back to have that same beer, it's not always quite the same. So that attention to detail is huge. And how has that affected like your thought going forward? Like, do you see that as being like a limiting thing, like where you can only really focus on so much beer, or do you feel like because you're so focused, you can actually attack more?
I think like being focused on, like dialing certain things in, like we've learned something new every single time we've brewed like a batch of Gully, like our IPA, and all of those small things go towards, kind of the greater understanding of our system and our ingredients. So I think in some ways it helps us with other beers too, so that way we know how certain hops are going to work or how this brew house works. So there's a lot less variables when we are brewing something new or something different. I think it's like more challenging because there's, it's a agricultural product. Hops change year to year, grain changes year to year. So trying to kind of see those changes and still keep the beer consistent is definitely difficult. But we'd rather do that than like just try to kind of a scatter shot, just like, oh, well, this is like pretty much the same beer, but these hops are different. So if it doesn't taste like it did before, it's a different beer, so it doesn't really matter.
Love that. Sorry.
Whoa.
It's definitely
Technical talk.
Yeah, exactly. That's where we get really caught up in a lot of the times, because as we try to look forward into the future with us wanting to open up a brewery, this type of conversation is really intriguing to us about how do we approach certain things, how do we make sure that we're delivering the best quality product that we can.